Upgraded GoBot. Let's make the competition crash and burn. Guess I'm not as crazy. Hello everybody, Sparkster1701 here, and we're concluding our month by taking a look at one of the latest in the Velocitron 500 collection. This is Crasher. Before we get too far into this video, I definitely want to dedicate this video to all the GoBot fans that are still out there. There are quite a few of them. And especially to YouTube channel operator Crasher, who's also been a fan and supporter of this channel. So, this is for you, my friend. Crasher was one of the recent ones to be put out for the Velocitron Speedia collection, which are exclusives to Walmart stores. And there'll probably still be a few of them on the shelves. This toy is a repaint of the Siege version of Mirage. But I think it's done more based on the one that was released through Amazon that was part of a multi-pack. Now, we're going to get into a little bit of detailed history here, because there is quite a bit to talk about here, since this is based on a character from another toy line, which Hasbro does own, but there's a lot of complications involved with it. And also for the benefit of those who may not know much about Crasher. In the 1980s, Tonka Toys got word of Hasbro's deal with Takara to bring over their shape-changing robot toys from their Diaclone and Microman toy lines. Tonka decided to seize on the opportunity and try to beat Hasbro to the punch. So they got in touch with Takara's rivals in Japan, Bandai, and bought up the rights to release their Machine Robo figures here in the United States, and they renamed them as the GoBots. The GoBots were actually released in 1984, the same year the Transformers would be released. However, the GoBots got released about 6 months before the Autobots and Decepticons would appear. Their biggest failing at it was the fact that Tonka just threw them out there without much thought to anything beyond names and a basic faction, whereas Hasbro was building off of the success they garnered 2 years prior with their reemergence of G.I. Joe. They had worked with Marvel Comics to help create a comic book series and eventually a cartoon series that helped flesh out the lore of the characters. Tonka had apparently considered putting in some lore for the GoBots, but one of the executives did not believe that kids would be all that interested in this, and that idea was scrapped. However, Hasbro continued it by making the tech spec bios that were basically an expansion upon the file cards that were put out with their G.I. Joe figures. In one of Mark Bellomo's G.I. Joe guidebooks, he explains at the beginning of it that the file cards for a G.I. Joe figure made the characters more interesting than, say, some of the figures that were being released in the Star Wars toy line that was also around at that time. And basically, let's face it, if you weren't one of the major characters in the Star Wars movies, nobody else really knew anything about any of those other characters until several years later when a lot of the books that came out in the 90s helped flesh out a lot of the characters and the alien species that were seen in the films. At any rate, when Crasher was first released with the GoBots, she was released in her original Machine Robo colors, which, as you can see, she was a solid white robot. However, when Tonka had Hanna-Barbera produce the cartoon series as a way of playing catch-up with the Transformers, they decided that the white color looked too nice for them to make it a considerably evil character. So, they recolored the character in the cartoon to be a black vehicle. And during later that same year, Tonka would release version 2 of Crasher, which would be done up to more resemble how the character appeared in the cartoon. There were several versions of this Machine Robo figure released. In Europe, it was released under a slightly different name of Robo Machine, and both versions did gradually appear under that label. However, there is also a very rare silver version of this figure that was released in Australia as a prize. When Crasher appeared in the cartoon series, she basically came out as one of Psykill's most trusted lieutenants, as she pretty much appeared in almost all the episodes, if not every episode, and was quite often involved in all the action going on in the episode. She was well known for her crazy laugh and a special ground attack where she would stomp her foot and energy would cascade from it in almost a lightning bolt pattern that was rather unpredictable. Now, believe it or not, parts of the bio that were originally written for Crasher was used for making the character, but part of the stuff that came with it was from the bio of Spoiler. Because originally, Crasher was intended to be a male character. And Spoiler was going to be a female character. Got rearranged for the cartoon, and Crasher has always been depicted as a female character, regardless of what the media depicting the GoBots has been. In the cartoon, Crasher was voiced by Canadian voice actress Marilyn Lightstone, and her portrayal of Crasher has long been said to have been one of the breakout bits in the Challenge of the GoBots cartoon, as she was depicting a strong and very confident and capable female character well before people knew that's what they wanted in their female characters. So you see, world, we already had them. We had strong female characters. Unfortunately, they were in something that most people didn't want to see. Lightstone has also done voice work in numerous other cartoons. Probably the other most named role was being Heathcliff's girlfriend Sonia in the Heathcliff cartoon. But she also voiced characters in Inspector Gadget, Dennis the Menace, and the Real Ghostbusters. And had some memorable roles in an episode of Darkwing Duck and the Super Mario Bros. Super Show, among many other numerous works. Also, to go along with that, this character's popularity has seen a resurgence within the past number of years. In 2007, when the Transformers movie was first released, the toy line included a racing car Decepticon that was called Fracture. and Fracture was painted up in the colors of Crasher. So it was meant to be an homage to Crasher, a comic book depicting an alternate take on the events of Transformers the movie, has the Renegades alongside the Decepticons. Crasher would be one of them that would have been mortally wounded in the Battle of Autobot City, and would be one of them that was ejected into space. She, like Megatron and the others that had been discarded, would be found by Unicron, and Crasher would be reformatted into Fracture. Sort of a way of explaining how the character is like Crasher but isn't. In fact, Crasher's popularity is so grand, Crasher for a brief while was considered to be the villain for the Bumblebee movie, until Hasbro decided, more than likely due to a lot of the legal reasons, that it was better to go with somebody else, and they created Shatter instead as the main villain. When Tonka folded up their business in the late 80s, early 90s, Hasbro bought up all of their properties. So they own the names to the GoBots, but the designs for their toys are still owned by Bandai. So there's quite a lot of legal mumbo-jumbo involved in the use of many of the GoBots in Transformer media, which is why even on the box lists Crasher as a Decepticon, with no references at all to her being a Renegade or a GoBot. Which is sort of a shame, but I guess that's just how the arrangement works out. Alright then, let's take a look now at Crasher's accessories. And we'll start here with her rifle, which is again based on one that came with Mirage. Except Crasher's here is molded entirely in black plastic. It's a nice sort of science fiction-y like rifle. It has a foregrip and a basic sight on the top of it, so it is a kind of a nice looking gun. And then of course in her other hand, Crasher has a missile launcher. And yes, it even does feature a removable missile. In fact, since the missile does have a post at the bottom of it, she can hold the missile and use it like an old style ray gun, like from the old science fiction movies. And of course, this is what the launcher looks like without the missile. Which again, it looks pretty good. It's got a lot of nice detailing on it. And then of course, make sure that everybody gets a good look at the missile, if I can hold on to it. The missile's not bad. I mean, the only real gripe is all the hollow areas on it in here, but otherwise it looks pretty good, and you can label it as either a missile or a small ray gun. Either way works. Alright, let's now take a good look at Crasher and take a look at her articulation. But of course also let people get a good look at the face. Since it's basically a retool of a previous toy, they just basically painted over details, but they at least went with the face color and the eye color that Crasher had in the cartoon, so that's, again, a nice homage to the character. Her head can be turned from side to side. Unfortunately, it is on a small ball joint, so it will rock up and down a little bit. I didn't think it had one. Her arms can be raised out to the side, about so far, and she can rotate her arm at the shoulder all the way. You can bend her arm at the elbow 90 degrees, and she does have a swivel at the bicep, so she has G.I. Joe battle grip. You can twist her at the hips, so she does have some dance moves going there. You can spread her legs apart into a full splits. She does have a great thigh cut. You just got to watch out for the kibble of her wheels getting in the way. You can raise her leg at the hip 90 degrees, and you can bend her leg at the knee 90 degrees. You also have some slight articulation down here at her ankle. So all in all, there are a lot of good display options for Crasher. And of course, one other thing to point out before we transform her, if you want to keep her weapons with her but would prefer that she not have them, well, there's an easy way to do that. Her guns can be stored on the back of her arms. And then that way you can give the appearance that Crasher's not carrying guns, and she can look more like her GoBot appearance. Now all we'll need is something to represent the energy waves from her feet, and we are covered. Alright, now we gotta get rid of these, because it's time to transform Crasher. And in order to do that, we gotta start by rotating the spoiler here on her shoulders. Rotate it so it's facing this way. Then we're going to bring her arms up. We got to get it to separate from the shoulder as well. So it takes a little bit of effort. We got to pop them free. There we go. Pop it free and keep her arms pointing out to the side, just like that. Pop it up, point it to the side, just like that. And when we got her arms like that, we're going to fold her hands inside her arms. That way it gets them out of the way. Next, we're going to come down here, just underneath the chest. We're going to pop the front end of the race car free. Come on, pop free. Pull her wheels out here so I have something extra to get behind. Come on. She's gonna fight me. Hold on. Alright, next step is we gotta come down here to her legs. Turn her legs at the thigh so that her feet are pointing towards each other. And then we've got to start to separate them out and fold out, separate the wheel piece from inside the leg, like so. So shift the leg cover upwards a bit, because it's on a special hinge there. Then you'll take this piece in the back and you're going to fold the wheels so they go out the other side. There we go. Get my fingers out of the way too. Ouch. Then we got to shift things a bit, a little bit more, so that way we can work the leg covers up, fold the feet inwards, Get her legs straightened out as we do so, because the innards of her feet are going to connect together to form the front end of the car, and then her leg covers are going to be forming the rest of it. Of course, we also need to turn her around a little bit. She's still fighting me. Excuse me. Alright, now that we got everything connected in there like we should, we'll come around here to the back and we're going to get the wheels out. Get her back wheels out a bit. Then this piece should pop down, and it allows us to rotate her head so that it goes inside. Still not getting her to shift back a bit more. Hold on. And now we finally got her totally unjammed. There we go. So now that we got that in place, get this connected up here. And now we're going to come up here to her arms, because that's what we're going to work on next. I want you to pivot her forearms so that you can see the white sides. So there's a post here on this arm, and there's a hole here on this arm. So once they're like that, they want us to shift things to bring them up towards the center, like so. And then we're going to shift them a bit more so that they're this way. They got to face this way. That's the proper way to have it. Adjust the spoiler a bit more, because they've got to bend so this thing connects. So once again, something's not entirely right here, because they are not going to connect this way. Let's take another look. Alright, the instructions aren't really showing us this, but in order to get things to go the way we're wanting them to, we got to shift the things at the shoulder so that our shoulder pieces come down like this, and then rotate the arms so that they point upwards like this. Then that way things will be getting close enough together that we can connect her spoiler and even get things a little bit closer on the car cover, because then we're going to separate this so that we can fold this section as it's supposed to fold downwards. I think we got this backwards here. Yep, that's what we did wrong. We went backward. We went a little bit backwards. Oh well, quick adjustment. It's part of the reason I don't care for the modern instructions. They are not anywhere near as helpful as the 1980s instructions were. Alright. Then there we go. Now it's folding down the way it's supposed to. This arm back in the position it's supposed to be in. Get it snapped together. And lock it down. There we go, snapped right into place. And here is Crasher's new alternate mode of a variation Formula One style racing car. And of course she's got a couple of holes here so that you can mount her guns. And she even rolls pretty good. And it's still in keeping somewhat with her alternate mode themes, since her original toys were made out of a Porsche 956. Again, done up as a racing car. So now we get to my thoughts. Crasher is definitely a popular character, and it is good to see that Hasbro did find some way to work it out that they could bring her back. It would have been nicer, though, had she been more part of the mainstream toy line than as a single store exclusive, because I think Crasher deserves more than to be a store exclusive. But then again, when Fracture was released back in 2007, Fracture was also a Walmart exclusive, so I guess Crasher has a thing for Walmarts or something. Yes, it is disappointing that she is basically a retool and a repaint, but I'm willing to put that aside for the fact that it is still based on one of the more popular characters, even though it's from a rival toy line. Perhaps maybe if this toy succeeds in decent numbers, they might consider bringing more GoBot characters back into the fold. It certainly would be interesting to see. Tonka did write up some decent bios for many of the characters, and it would be nice to see them get a little bit of an expansion in the Transformers universe. But only time and the legalities of their contract with Bandai on this will tell what will become of that. At any rate, that concludes my review of the Velocitron version of Crasher. I hope you all enjoyed it. Please do remember that if you enjoy the content we feature here on this channel, please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Now, next month, for the month of May, we're going to take a look at some studio figures. I've got a small backlog of them, so we're going to go through 4 of them this next month. This is Sparkster1701 saying I will catch you all later.